long time lightweight in the sport of mixed martial arts. And he's been jumping around, man. We're wondering where he's been. What's he doing? We got to catch up with him. So we said, let's just go to the source. Kevin Lee here on MMA Today. How you doing, Kevin?
Good, good. Beautiful introduction. Right next to Mike Tyson. I like it. I'm trying to channel my inner Mike, trying to channel my inner Ali. I'm trying to be all those guys.
I think there's no better sign how much Mike Tyson is revered when, like, the baddest dudes in the world look at him the same way average people do.
Oh, yeah.
Like every fighter, every boxer, you could be no matter who you are as a red-blooded human male, like you look at Mike Tyson the same way.
Yep. And people, try and downplay that last fight that he had, but they forget that man was 60 years old. If you able to compete at any type of level at 60 years old, I mean, I don't think there's been another legend to be able to do that. And he went to the bell. He didn't get knocked out. He didn't look crazy. Much respect for Tyson, especially given all that he's been through.
Yeah, it's like Christie Brinkley still being hot at 71. Same level. Like, how do you pull that off? It's like you're 1-1.
I don't know who that is, but there's some out there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's some women out there.
Recognize her if you saw her. Yeah. Anyway, so you just you're now in the PFL, right? You're filling in for JJ Wilson. You'll be taking on Godzi Rabadanov in the PFL Semifinals in 2025. You've kind of been all over, man. You were like in the UFC for a while, then Eagle, then back, and then you took a regional show. Now the PFL. I mean, just walk me through the last kind of like 12 to 18 months for you and how you ended up here.
Yeah, really it's been the last 5 years. I haven't competed at lightweight in 5 years. That my last fight at lightweight was against Charles Oliveira right at the start of the pandemic in 2020. And since then, I took a couple fights at 170. I had some very major injuries that I had to go through, 3 different major knee surgeries. Like you said, the fight over an Eagle where I tore my knee right away. I ended up going back to the UFC just so that I can get the surgery. And then these last maybe 12 months or so, we were in pretty heavy talks with GFL. They were supposed to be the new startup promotion. They were supposed to be the next big thing. And I got behind them pretty good. The talks were great, but there wasn't no action behind it. And, I can't speak too much on the situation because now we're going through legal and, I'll be suing them for some defamation, for some extortion. I think that they used guys like me and used our name in order to get out there and be a major face of the MMA the promotion business, and nothing ever came from it. So when this fight happened, I went and I watched his fight against Mark DeCasey up here in Orlando, and this guy impressed me. Not a lot of other lightweights in PFL were impressive, to be honest. But when he knocked out Mark DeCasey the way that he did, and he was fast, he was explosive, he was very accurate. That was something that really interests me. And look at it now; it just turned out perfect. This guy got hurt, and I'm stepping in, and I'm into the semifinals of the PFL tournament, and I'm going against the reigning defending champion. So this is exactly what I was looking for to get back up there and fight a top lightweight.
Yeah, talk about deep end of the pool out of the gate. Like you said, the first time I'll be at 155 in almost half a decade is weight. And you always talked about you wish there was like a super lightweight,
Yep.
Junior welterweight division, something like that. Have you found new ways to make sure that weight won't be an issue this time?
Really over the last 12 months, I've really honed in on that. So weight won't be an issue. It would be great if there was a 165, right? We've been talking about it for years, but over the years and just noticing that it's not going to happen. Eagle had a 165 division, but they refused to put up the championship. When they did that, I realized that it just wasn't going to happen. So I started to tone down my weight again. And now that I'm not dealing with the injuries no more, the weight is not going to be an issue. So like I said, I haven't competed at lightweight in 5 years. This is going to be the first cut, but I'm very, very confident going into it. And I've done it 30 times over my career. I've got 21 UFC fights, and most of them were all at lightweight. So I'm pretty confident in making the weight and being the bigger, stronger, faster guy out there.
Talking to Kevin Lee here on MMA Today. So obviously, big opportunities come with huge risk and huge upside, right? Like I think this is your opportunity where you've been jumping around, jumping weight classes, all those injuries like you mentioned, and now straight into the PFL championship on short notice in the semifinals. How do you view this fight? Like, what's at stake for you? Because this could be a big, like, I'm back type of win for you.
That's exactly what it is, and that's all I'm focused on. I'm not focused on nothing else but that. Even the last 6-7 months, that's all I've been focused on, is getting back up there and competing against a top lightweight. And this guy is that. I mean, some people think that the UFC is the be all end all be all, and those are the best fighters. But this guy is a very, very top competitor. So once I go out there and I beat him on June 20th, I'm going to show that I'm still one of the best lightweights in the world. I feel a lot of people have written me off. A lot of people either forget or, they just write me off. They think, I don't know what they think, but it doesn't really matter to me. I see the people doubting me. I hope they continue to doubt me. I hope they continue to write me off, to not think about it. And I'm going to show them in a big way on June 20th when I go out there and stomp a lightweight that's been proving himself again and again. And once I stomp him in the way that I am, I'm going to show that I'm still one of the top lightweights, just like I was a few years ago.
So this will be the fourth promotion you'll fight for in about a 3-year period, and that's not even including the GFL you signed with and didn't fight for. What can you tell me about like the MMA business today? Because you're kind of in that interesting semi-free agent that's been kind of all over the place. It seems like every single fight you're renegotiating a new deal. Where am I going to land? Mm-hmm. What is the status of being a free agent fighter in 2025?
It sucks. It sucks. I'll be honest. Like, there's not a whole lot of options. I mean, really, I've only fought for 2 promotions. I've only fought for the UFC and Eagle under Khabib. I know I had that last fight in Michigan, and that was just kind of a tune-up. That was just kind of to get the gears back running and show that I'm still a competitor. I didn't get touched in that fight. It was pretty smooth. I finished the guy in over a minute. So that one, do I really count it? Not really. That was just kind of getting the gears back running. And I think MMA is kind of going the way of boxing a little bit, where you do have these separate promotions and these separate promoters. And, I said it even when I signed with Eagle. The thing now is to make a name for yourself and you be that guy. And I think regardless of where I am, I'm still going to be me and I'm still going to be that guy. I just need to remind people and get the people back on my side. But in MMA, the machine is a monster. The UFC machine, the promotional machine is a monster. When they want to push that button on you and tell you to go, the fans of the UFC really, really either stand with that or they stand against it. They could push that button to say go. They could push that button to say stop. And I've seen that happen to me personally in both ways. So MMA, I still think has a big opportunity to grow. I even said that at the beginning of this year. If people go back and listen to me in January on Ariel Helwani's show, I said this year is going to be the year that kind of shows where MMA is standing. And if GFL didn't work out great, then I thought that MMA would kind of go through a rough year. And that's kind of been happening, even in the UFC. Like, some of these fights, they're not exciting. Nobody gives you like that same feeling no more. The only time I got that feeling is when I was watching Jeremy Stevens, and then I watched Miesha Tate fight. And when you see Miesha, like, you could see that hunger, you could see that passion coming out of her, even though she lost the fight. That was the first time that a UFC fight really got me up for the whole year. The rest of them, I honestly fall asleep through half of the card, or it's just a background noise, And I hate to see MMA and I hate to see fighting go down that road, because I truly, truly love this sport. As much as I try and branch off and do other things and start my restaurant and become a chef and do all this other stuff, MMA is like, it's like what I've been married to. You go through your rough patches, but I still kind of love her, and I still, this is what I end up back with. And I think regardless if I'm still fighting in the sport, I'll be around the sport for probably the rest of my life.
So I know you had the lawsuit with the GFL, so you can't get to full details. But I've always wondered. I've been trying to wrap my head around, like, from where I'm sitting, right, my dumbass chair here in my studio, right. I looked at the GFL. I'm like, there's no way this thing lasts. Like what they're saying, what they're doing, the business that it seems like they're making up as they go along. I'm like, this doesn't seem real. But other than all these fighters signing there, I couldn't imagine this thing working out. Like, what convinced you that the GFL would be successful and that you should tie your wagon to it?
What convinced me is that I was shown, that they had the money in the bank. So I knew at least they could throw on a few shows, and with the level of guys and the level of talent that they were putting on, and they had, a lot of people say they had old fighters, but they had young fighters. They had me. They had Sage Northcutt. They had a few young guys that could still continue to build up, and a few prospects out there. So when I saw that they had the money in the bank, I was like, okay, all right, we could put on a few shows, cut out the noise. And you were like a lot of people. A lot of people were saying that it wasn't going to happen. And the fact that it didn't happen is kind of the biggest slap in the face because, I didn't believe you. And, it ends up turning up right. I don't know if those transactions that I saw were faked. I don't know, I don't know the back ends of it. And again, I can't get too much into it on the specifics of it, just because that'll come out in the court. And I'll kind of let that happen. But I wish that it did happen. And I wish that it could have succeeded in the way that they wanted to. And it's a shame that it didn't.
Yeah, obviously, like, you're still young, right? Your career's far from over. But I think there's just so much of kind of like a what could have been with you, right? You're just right there on the cusp. And like you said, the injuries, kind of a tweener weight-wise, mixing promotions, things like that. If you could go back and change anything, would you, and what would it be?
I wouldn't have taken so many fights. I took a lot of fights that I didn't necessarily needed to. But something in me, I just don't really care about the idea of legacy and the idea of what people think about it or anything. I'm just constantly trying to test myself. But I probably wouldn't have taken as many fights, especially, like my last fight in the UFC, I took on one leg, my leg was so badly damaged. I damaged it getting into the cage again. And that was pretty much all that she wrote. It's not very smart to take on a very top contender with a bad ACL, that it's just not smart, but, that's just who I am. And I'm not necessarily going to make any apologies for it. I'm not going to necessarily say that I would have did it different, but yeah, if I could take it back, I probably wouldn't. I especially wouldn't have did that last UFC fight. I would have probably had the surgery first, waited a year, and then did it. But I'm a gambler, and a lot of times I'll bet on myself and just roll the dice, and it's going to be what it's going to be, and put my life in God's hands and make it happen. But if I would have been smart, I'd have probably slowed down a little bit.
So like I mentioned, 32 years old, several years of prime still left. Obviously, you got to take care of business June 20th. But if you close your eyes and look at kind of like the rest of your prime career, if you could plan it out, what would it look like?
I would want it to be with a smart promoter. Just to go back to how the MMA landscape is right now, a lot of these promoters are not very good. And a lot of people that they hire just aren't very good. Like they're not smart people. And I think they look at us like, oh, we're just fighters. We get hit in the head, and what do you know? Like just shut up and fight. But if there's a smart promoter out there who really understands marketing, who understands the game, who understands like where things are going, who aren't afraid to like do things that are outside the box. And I'll give credit to Dana. Dana is probably the best promoter of our lifetime that we had. And you see him do things outside the box. You see him, get these YouTubers and get these streamers and do stuff that other people wouldn't necessarily take that risk. But you see the risk pay off. They don't always pay off, but the risks definitely pay off. And some of these promoters, I look at what they do, and I look at, you know, how they have things set up and what they're trying to do, and it doesn't make much sense. So just to answer your question, the next few years, I'll prove myself as a top fighter, and hopefully I can get with the right team, and the right team includes a great promoter, and we make this thing keep rocking and rolling.
Well, I'll tell you what you don't need to do, and that's add to that sneaker collection. It looks complete to me. Look, I'm seeing your background. It's just stacks, towers of shoes. It's like a New York City skyline, but just all kicks.
Yeah. My wife's got an addiction. Yeah.
Oh, with your wife? Okay.
We'll say that. We'll say that.
You and me both, buddy. Except we can't afford to feed her addiction. That's the only reason why we don't have rooms full of shoes here in the Clifford household. Kevin, great catching up with you. Really appreciate you. Best of luck coming up in just a few weeks now, June 20th in PFL.
Always, I appreciate it, and you know, every training session, I'm getting more and more confidence, and I can't wait to go out there and put on a show.